Keanu Reeves is a man who has always stayed in the shadows. His personal life has always remained hidden from the public, and he himself has never sought to reveal it. But one day, everything changes. He receives a letter. A woman, with whom he has never been in contact, claims to be his daughter. It's a strange moment because Keanu didn't know she existed. Confused, he decides to meet her. But what if this meeting not only reveals the truth about his past, but also teaches him something important about a life he could have lived differently? This woman, whom he has never met, has a story that makes him reconsider his choices, relationships, and values. This will not just be a meeting with his daughter. It will be a meeting with a part of himself, a hidden and long-forgotten part of his life. Keanu Reeves' life had always followed a steady rhythm, one that was comfortable and predictable. He had learned long ago to keep his private life under wraps, avoiding the constant attention that came with fame. But that all changed the day he received an unexpected letter. The moment he opened the envelope and saw the handwritten words, his mind raced. He felt a mix of emotions: surprise, confusion, and a deep sense of uncertainty. The letter was from a woman claiming to be his daughter. She was asking for a meeting. At first, Keanu was stunned. He had no memory of this woman, no knowledge of her existence. As he read the words again, disbelief settled in. Could this be real? He had lived his life quietly, always cautious with relationships, keeping a distance from the complexities of family matters. But now, this message was forcing him to reconsider everything he thought he knew about himself. He sat there for a long while, staring at the letter, the weight of its contents pressing on him. He had always kept to himself, preferring solitude over the chaos of personal dramas. The idea of a child, a daughter, suddenly entering his life was almost unfathomable. He had built walls around himself over the years, walls that were meant to keep the noise of the world out, to keep his peace. But now, there was a crack in that wall, a crack that came from a single letter. Keanu tried to focus, but his mind kept drifting. He thought of all the possible reasons why someone would claim to be his daughter. Maybe it was a misunderstanding, a hoax, or perhaps something deeper. What if she was telling the truth? What if this was real? The uncertainty gnawed at him. He knew he couldn't ignore it, not when it had come this far. He didn't know if he was ready to face whatever the truth might be, but something inside him pushed him to take that first step. He decided he would meet her, though he had no idea what to expect. This wasn't part of the quiet life he had carefully crafted for himself. It was messy, unexpected, and uncomfortable, but it was real. The uncertainty lingered, but so did a sense of duty. There was something about this that he couldn't shake off. It wasn't just curiosity. It was a need to know, to understand what was hidden beneath the surface. As Keanu prepared for the meeting, he found himself second-guessing everything. Was he truly ready for this? Did he even know how to be a father? He had spent so much of his life keeping things at arm's length, never allowing himself to get too close to anyone. Now, a stranger was claiming to be the most intimate connection he could possibly have. The thought was overwhelming, but still, he knew what he had to do. He had to face it. Despite his fear and his doubt, Keanu set out to meet this woman, to face the truth, whatever it might be. The world outside seemed to fade as his mind swirled with questions, and as he walked towards that fateful meeting, he couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive, unsure of what lay ahead. This was a moment in his life he had never anticipated, a moment that would change everything. And as much as he feared it, he couldn't stop it. The story of his past, hidden in shadows for so long, was about to come to light. And nothing, not even Keanu Reeves, could prepare him for what was to come. The meeting with his daughter was filled with emotions that Keanu hadn't anticipated. As he entered the cafe, the anxiety from receiving the letter months ago still lingered in his chest. He had no idea what to expect. Her face, a mirror of his own features but with her own unique traits, held a quiet confidence. But there was an underlying tension that Keanu could sense from the moment he walked in. She stood up to greet him, and as their eyes met, it felt like a piece of a forgotten past suddenly resurfaced. Keanu, still in shock, sat down across from her, trying to process the situation. His mind raced, filled with questions that he wasn't sure he was ready to ask. She spoke slowly, carefully choosing her words. Her mother had been a close friend of Keanu's many years ago, and Keanu, in his busy, private life, had lost touch with her. The revelation that this woman was not just someone he'd known, but his own daughter, was a shock to his system. How could he have missed such an important part of his past? She continued, telling him that her mother had kept her pregnancy a secret. The child had been born in a time when her mother had nowhere else to turn, and she felt forced to keep the identity of the father hidden. Keanu listened intently, but inside, his world was slowly unraveling. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. All these years, his life had moved forward in a carefully controlled rhythm, and suddenly, this truth had emerged, shaking him to his core. The daughter spoke with a sense of quiet sadness, recounting how her mother had told her stories of Keanu, of their friendship and the reasons why things had changed. She had grown up without knowing her father, always feeling a gap, an emptiness that she couldn't fully understand. But now, sitting across from the man she had always wondered about, she felt both relief and pain. Keanu was there, in front of her, yet there was so much time lost in between. Keanu felt his heart tighten. As much as he tried to stay composed, the weight of the situation bore down on him. He didn't have the answers. He couldn't go back in time. He didn't know what his life could have been like had he known about her. He felt guilty, as if he had abandoned something precious, something that could have been. He questioned his own choices, the way he had lived so privately, not letting people get close enough to share his life with. Was he at fault for not being more present? Could he have made a different decision, one that would have led him to this moment sooner? As his daughter spoke more about her life, about how she had grown up without him, a sense of grief washed over Keanu. He had built his life around self-reliance, and now he was facing the consequences of that choice. The weight of his absence from her life hung heavy in the air, and the regret was palpable. She didn't blame him. She understood the complexities of life, but Keanu couldn't help but feel that he had missed out on something irreplaceable. The conversation drifted into silence for a moment as both of them processed the gravity of what had just been shared. Keanu found himself looking at her in a new light, seeing his own life reflected in her, and at the same time, realizing that so much of it had been lived without this connection. His emotions were tangled: guilt, disbelief, and a strange sense of hope. There was a woman sitting in front of him who was a part of him, but she was also her own person with her own life and experiences that he had missed. As they continued talking, Keanu realized how much he still had to learn about her and about himself. This moment, this unexpected revelation, was forcing him to rethink everything he had known. His life, once defined by solitude and control, was now being reshaped by the sudden appearance of someone he never knew he had. It was a reminder of how unpredictable life could be, and how, even in moments of pain and regret, there was still the possibility of redemption, connection, and healing. By the end of their conversation, Keanu understood that he couldn't change the past, but he could make the present count. He wasn't sure what the future held, but this meeting, this unexpected encounter with his daughter, was the first step towards something he had never imagined. As time passed, Keanu found himself reflecting deeply on the life he had chosen to live. His career, his privacy, and his preference for solitude had always come first. He had carefully built a wall around himself, keeping his personal life hidden from the public eye. He had convinced himself that by doing so, he was protecting himself from the potential chaos of emotional connections, from the messy entanglements that often came with relationships, and from the vulnerability that came with letting others in. But now, looking at his daughter, he began to see the consequences of those choices. For years, Keanu had operated under the belief that by isolating himself, he was preserving his peace and sanity. He avoided the obligations that come with family, with close relationships, and with the emotional risks that accompany them. He never expected that his decision to keep things private would lead to this, a chance to meet his daughter after so many years. The realization struck him hard. He had not just kept others out of his life, but he had also kept himself from truly experiencing the richness of human connection. His daughter, sitting across from him, was proof of what he had lost. It wasn't just the years of missed birthdays, graduations, and family milestones, but the emotional toll of not being there for her. Keanu began to feel the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He had spent his life prioritizing solitude, thinking it was safer, more manageable. But now he saw that it had cost him something precious. The years of quiet, independent living had come at the expense of real connection. Every moment he spent with his daughter now was filled with both joy and regret. Joy in the sense that he was finally getting to know her, to understand who she had become, but regret in the knowledge that he had missed out on so much of her life. Each smile, each story she shared, reminded him of how much he had been absent, both physically and emotionally. The daughter he was getting to know was someone he could have known all along. Had he been more open to life, to the possibility of love, and to the idea of being vulnerable with those closest to him. Keanu's thoughts wandered back to the years when he had chosen to live in isolation. He had buried himself in his work, his fame, and his self-imposed solitude. At the time, it felt like the right decision. It felt safer, easier. But now, as he sat with his daughter, he realized that those years, though peaceful, had also been empty. The world he had built around himself was fragile and hollow. It was a world where success and recognition meant more than human connection, and the cost of that was becoming clearer by the day. He began to ask himself, what if things had been different? What if he had allowed himself to be vulnerable? What if, instead of pushing people away, he had embraced them? What if he had been a father to his daughter, a partner to those who cared about him, a friend to the people who admired him? These thoughts filled him with both pain and clarity. He understood now that true happiness didn't come from solitude or independence, but from shared experiences, from the relationships we build, and from being open to the possibility of love and connection. As Keanu continued to spend time with his daughter, he began to change. The walls he had built around his heart started to crumble, slowly but surely. He began to feel things he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years: gratitude, vulnerability, and even hope. He realized that his daughter wasn't just a part of his past that he had missed out on, but a part of his future that he could still embrace. She was an opportunity to create a new chapter in his life, a chapter where he was no longer alone, but surrounded by the people who mattered most. Each moment with her became a lesson in letting go of the past, in forgiving himself for the years of distance, and in embracing the chance to be present in a way he had never been before. Keanu understood now that life wasn't about avoiding pain or discomfort, but about experiencing it with others, sharing it, and growing from it. He saw that by opening his heart to his daughter, he was also opening his heart to the world around him, to the possibility of real connection, and to the love that had been waiting for him all along. The more he reflected on his choices, the more he realized that this was a chance for him to rewrite his story. He had been given the opportunity to rebuild the relationships that had once seemed lost, and with that, he found a sense of peace and purpose that had long eluded him. The isolation that had once felt like a refuge was now the very thing he needed to break free from. In opening himself up to his daughter, Keanu was finding a new kind of freedom, a freedom that came from embracing the people around him and allowing himself to truly connect with the world. And so, as he continued to build a relationship with his daughter, Keanu knew that this moment, this unexpected chapter in his life, was just the beginning of something far more meaningful. He had learned that life wasn't about avoiding the pain of vulnerability, but about embracing it, learning from it, and growing stronger because of it. His journey with his daughter had just begun, and with it, a whole new understanding of what it meant to be truly alive. With the truth now revealed, Keanu realized that his life could no longer continue as it had before. He understood that the past had shaped him, but it didn't define him anymore. He had been living in isolation, deliberately avoiding connections, and keeping his emotions at bay. But now, facing the daughter he had never known, he knew he had a second chance to change things. His decision was clear. He would rebuild his relationship with her, no longer hiding from the life he had neglected, but instead embracing it fully. Keanu knew that the years lost were precious, but he also realized that they couldn't be reclaimed by simply dwelling on what had been missed. What mattered now was the opportunity ahead of him, the opportunity to make new memories, to share moments, and to learn to be a father in ways he had never thought possible. As he sat with his daughter, their quiet conversations, shared laughter, and long silences slowly began to knit together a bond that had been hidden for too long. With every passing day, their relationship grew stronger, and Keanu found himself feeling a sense of warmth and peace he hadn't known in years. He had always been focused on his career, his public image, and his desire to keep his private life distant from the world. But now he was learning to let go of that isolation, to open his heart to the people who truly mattered. No longer did he feel the need to maintain a wall around himself. The fear of vulnerability, which had once protected him, now felt like a barrier he was ready to dismantle. There was a profound shift in Keanu's mindset. His daughter was no longer a stranger, but a part of his life he was eager to embrace. The more he spent time with her, the more he realized that life wasn't about keeping everything under control. It was about letting people in, being open to experiences, and showing up for those who needed him. Keanu felt a sense of renewal that he hadn't expected, a sense of being truly alive and connected. He no longer saw his past decisions as regrets, but as lessons that had shaped him into someone ready to give love and support in ways he hadn't known he could. Their moments together were simple but meaningful. Whether it was sharing a meal, going on walks, or just talking about their day, Keanu learned to appreciate the beauty of these small moments. He had spent so much of his life running from emotional commitments, afraid of the pain they could bring. But now, with his daughter by his side, he saw the strength in embracing vulnerability and the joy in forming connections. Keanu knew there was still much to catch up on. Years of missed birthdays, graduations, and family events couldn't be undone, but what mattered was that he was now part of her life, and she was part of his. Together, they could build new memories, even if they couldn't recover everything from the past. This new journey they were on was filled with possibilities of discovering who they were to each other and what it meant to be family. As their bond grew stronger, Keanu realized that this was the life he had been searching for all along. The pursuit of fame, success, and recognition had left him with an empty space that he had tried to fill with material things. But now, as he shared his life with his daughter, he understood that true fulfillment came not from external achievements, but from the connections we nurture with the people we love. This was the new path he was ready to walk, one that would be filled with growth, love, and mutual understanding. In the months that followed, Keanu and his daughter continued to deepen their relationship. They explored each other's worlds, finding common ground in their interests and learning to appreciate their differences. Keanu no longer saw his daughter as someone he had missed out on, but as someone who had always been a part of his life, waiting to be discovered. With every step they took together, the past became less of a weight and more of a foundation for building their future. Keanu's journey had changed. He had gone from being a man who guarded his emotions and his privacy to a man who was learning to embrace love, vulnerability, and connection. The lessons he had learned from his daughter about patience, forgiveness, and the importance of being open shaped the man he was becoming. It was no longer about avoiding pain or discomfort, but about experiencing life fully with all its highs and lows. As Keanu and his daughter continued to walk this new path together, he found peace in knowing that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. There was no more hiding, no more running from the past. The future was theirs to create, and with each step, Keanu felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that he had found what truly mattered.